Coming in at number 10, we have a cooler costume. Okay, this is a little unfair because Spider-Man was designed back in the 60s, and even though there have been some major rework since then, the base style of his suit still stays the same. So Miles has a look that is much more modern, but really it's the black and red that sends it home. The color scheme is so much cooler than the main Spider-Man suit. And when you throw in the Spider-Verse version with Miles wearing the hoodie, the jeans, and the Jordans, it's hard for the original web slinger to compete. Imagine if that was real life and Miles was spotted wearing Jordans while swinging around New York. The stock price on those shoes would go through the roof. And I think that's the only thing that can make them cooler than being related to Michael Jordan himself. I mean, I don't know, who's cooler, Michael Jordan or Miles Morales? I'll let you guys discuss that in the comments. Coming at number 9, we have Miles was a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. Now, this one could be split. Some people may see this as something extremely cool. You're working for the largest defense agency in the world. It's supported by the government and has been helping the Avengers keep the world safe for longer than I've been alive. But on the same hand, some people might see working for S.H.I.E.L.D. as lame and some sort of cop-out version of being a hero. It's like when the indie band starts doing commercials for Coca-Cola and all their songs sound like they're produced by Timbaland. By the way, I love Timbaland, I'm not trying to diss him. I'm just saying it's more mainstream. But I threw this on the list because Miles becoming a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent is something he accomplished while he was still very young, which means he could end up being a more advanced Spidey than Peter Parker by the end of his Spidey career. But at the same time, he probably wouldn't have been able to do this without Spider-Man's help, and that's why this point is only at number 9. Coming in at number 8, we have the Spider-Verse Spider-Man costume. Let's roll from one tacky, poorly fitting Spider-Man knockoff suit right into another. In the movie Into the Spiderverse, we have Miles wearing a Spider-Man costume that he cuts eye holes into, and it's way too baggy for him. This is a hilarious look, and it really showcases the hero just starting out and having no idea what he's doing. Not only that, but Miles got this suit from Stan Lee himself. Do you guys remember that scene in the movie? Just a warning for anyone who hasn't seen Into the Spider-Verse. I don't know what you've been doing with your life, but there will be some spoilers coming up. In this scene, Spider-Man has just died. Miles goes into a store to get a Spider-Man costume. He then gets the suit from Stan Lee, and Stan Lee says, "I'm going to miss him." And this was right after Stan Lee had just passed away. I'm not confirming that me and my bro cried in the theater, but we might have cried in the theater. Coming in at number 7, we have Into the Spiderverse. Now, I might catch some heat for this, but I'm gonna put it on this list. Into the Spiderverse might be the best Spider-Man movie ever. I mean, they all have a special place in my heart. The Sam Raimi movies kicked open the door for Marvel characters being on screen and racking in web loads of cash. The 2 Garfunkel movies, although they weren't the best, they showcased some villains that I was happy to see on screen, and the MCU has really captured the perfect version of Peter Parker. But Spider-Verse was phenomenal in so many other ways. For one, it was the most touching Spider-Man movie. The relationship built between Miles and his individual family members feels so much more real, and the Stan Lee scene legit made me cry. Also, the alternate universe clash of villains was so cool. I love the wide array of variants. The Doc Ock reveal in that movie might be my favorite part of the whole film. And to top it off, it had some unreal action scenes and opened up a mainstream audience to Miles and the concept of the comic book multiverse. Not to mention, the movie won an Oscar. Coming in at number 6, we have the Cosmic Spider suit. Even though some comic fans don't see Miles as a legit Spider-Man, he has made some amazing accomplishments and deserves to be respected. I want you guys to know that I think Miles is a first-rate Spider-Man, so don't destroy me in the comments, please. One of the most insane things that Miles has done is become Captain Universe. This took place in Spider-Geddon number 5, and it gave Miles a whole new look. The white, blue, and black cosmic look was extremely cool, and of course he had a slew of new powers at his fingertips. He had the ability to blast energy rays out of his hands, he could fly, he had hypnosis, he had telekinesis, and that is just a few of the powers that were passed down to him. When people become Captain Universe, they are sort of a Silver Surfer-esque being with the amount of cool things they can do. Coming at number 5, we have Venom Bite. The traditional way for heroes to stop a villain in all superhero universes is with the fist-to-face approach. I mean, it has worked for over 100 years, so why stop now? Well, maybe there's a better way to do things things with these thugs if you have the right powers to do so. If you wanted a stealthier, less violent approach, then Miles is your guy. Miles possesses an array of powers that Spider-Man doesn't have, one of those being the Venom Bite. It is a knockout skill that will send even some of the biggest baddies in the villain catalog to an early bedtime. Then you just gotta whip them up and wait for the cops to show up to take them away. It makes Miles the perfect stealth ninja and gives him the opportunity to come in and take bad guys out without a scratch. Coming in at number 4, we have Spider Camouflage. Think of how much money this guy saves on camo every year, because we're all spending a bunch of money on camo, right? That's not just me. Well, let's continue down the list of powers that Miles has that Peter does not. One of these powers goes hand in hand with the Venom Bite, and that is the ability to blend into the environment. And not like the new kid in class blending in to desperately avoid being different, but he can actually become invisible. Hot damn, the deeper we get into this list, the more Miles seems like a super spy. Now, Miles can use this power in a variety of ways. We have seen him use this power to sneak into somewhere without being seen, but we've also seen him use this power to escape enemies when things get hairy. Just another way Miles can use the perfect non-violent approach to stopping crime. Coming in at number 3, we have BIO-ELECTROKINESIS. Okay, enough with the non-violent approaches for a little bit. Let's get into some of the right-in-your-face blast the hell out of people powers. Miles Morales has the ability to blast electricity right from within his body. This has been called the Venom Blast, and Miles can use this skill to knock out villains extremely quickly. Now, Miles being such a young hero, he doesn't really have a grasp on this perfectly yet, so the Venom Blast can come out at varying degrees. Sometimes the Venom Blast will just stun people for a moment and give Miles the chance to get the upper hand. Then there have been other times where it will knock out some of the biggest, baddest villains. For example, Miles has the ability to summon a Mega Venom Blast, which can destroy most of his surroundings, but will leave him in a weakened state for using that much energy. He can also focus this electrical power into certain areas of his body, like his fists, and deliver more powerful blows. And he's even used this power in more inventive ways, like shutting down computers or other electrical devices. Coming in at number 2, we have he went toe-to-toe with Galactus. Okay, you have to give him some credit for this. Even if you don't agree with anything on this list, you can't deny that going out to battle the World Eater is an amazing feat and should be recognized. Now, this wasn't a solo effort, because how could a teenager who shoots webs out of his hands be able to take down someone who is nearly a god and literally sucks back moons for dessert? So Miles went into this conflict with the king of stretchiness himself, Reed Richards. The two went in so they could get more information on Galactus and figure out a way to bring him down. Just having the bravery to take on such a monumental task, props to Miles. And for the number 1 spot, we have Miles might be immortal. Not being able to die, well, that's a very useful skill for any hero to have. Now, how could this be? Well, if we open up Ultimate Comics issue 3, we will find Miles in a heated battle with Norman Osborn, as he is in a full Green Goblin state. During this scrap, the GG starts monologuing, as supervillains do, and he tells Miles that the Oz formula that is coursing through the young Spider's veins, the one that gave him all his powers, had one major side effect, and that just happens to be immortality. You think they would write that on the bottle or something. Now, this resistance to death has not been tested, but I'm sure down the line we will find out if Miles is in fact death-proof. Alright guys, that has been our list, but just before I let you guys go, I'm going to give you guys my personal favorite non-comic book Spider-Man properties. First on this list has to be Spider-Man 3. Yes, this is one of the worst movies ever made. It was way too long and convoluted, and Evil Peter is one of the cringiest things you could ever put on screen, but that is exactly why I can't get enough of it. The Spider-Man dancing scene is one of the greatest things that has ever been put into the universe, and the memes that have come out of it are absolutely amazing. My next pick is the original 60s Spider-Man cartoon. Nothing has stood the test of time better. Once again, this property is objectively bad, but it's so ridiculous that you could still sit down today and laugh through every episode. And of course, the memes from the 60s Spider-Man are fire. Also, this was the birthplace of the Spider-Man theme song, which is probably the most iconic piece of this character's history. And last, I have Tom Holland. Okay, he's not like a Spider-Man property, but you understand the relation. The amount of mess-ups that this guy has done publicly with accidentally revealing Marvel content is perfect. I love it. When he accidentally showed off the Avengers poster, I laughed so hard I've probably watched that video 20 times, and he is my favorite. Coming in at number 10, we have the homemade Miles Morales suit. I love when you go back through the comics and you find the first suit that every super put on. You have the janky Iron Man suit that was too bulky to fly, you have the old school Blade looking amazing in the 70s attire, and the famous purple pantsed Hulk. With Miles, we have a classic look of the sweater thrown over a black t-shirt with the black pants on. This suit is just amazing because it marks the dawn of a hero, the moment when you accept the fact that you're going to take on all the evil in the world and protect the people who can't protect themselves. And it shows how young, unexperienced, and unprepared Miles is to go out and fight crime. Those first few years as a super are some of the best comics you can read. It's fun watching the hero make little mistakes while trying to stop a bank robbery. It's a refreshing break from trying to stop Thanos from collecting the Infinity Gems. I gotta say, that's probably a lot easier. Coming in at number 9, we have Miles wearing Spider-Man. This happens a lot in comics. A superhero dies and then a less experienced hero with similar abilities puts on the suit to take up the mantle, so the world feels safe and no one knows that they passed away. We saw it happen in Batman when everyone thought that he was dead and Nightwing decided he would become the new Bat. And then the same thing would happen with Miles, but in a much less official way. In the Ultimate Spider-Man universe, there was the tragic death of Peter Parker. The world was now left without Spider-Man. Miles thought that New York should not be without the friendly neighborhood hero. Now, unlike Nightwing becoming Batman, Miles didn't have access to the official tools that Spider-Man had been using, so he ended up wearing a Spider-Man suit that a friend purchased for him from a Halloween store. You can imagine this wasn't the same quality suit that Peter Parker had been repping, but hey, a hero gotta do what a hero gotta do. Coming in at number 8, we have new villains. Of course, we see new baddies pop up in Peter's version of the Marvel Universe all the time, but the franchise has been around for so long, it's hard to have these new villains have much of an impact as the Green Goblin or Doc Ock. And even when new villains come in, we will sometimes see that old comic book trope where it's actually a classic villain in disguise the whole time. We see this happen with Batman and the Joker a lot. But with Miles, he's such a fresh new character that introducing new villains gives them a chance to become the new arch enemy. This allows writers to carve out something new in a comic franchise that's already so cemented. Coming in at number 7, we have the Ultimatum suit. Dimension traveling Spider-Man, that's just something that comes up in the comics again and again. And when we see Ultimatum Miles Morales, it doesn't even look like any Spider-Man I know. And that's partly why I put it on this list. It's good to have a little variation, baby. The Ultimatum suit looks like a collage between different heroes put together. And I'm gonna say it's not my favorite suit of all time, but it does have some pretty cool elements. On the back, it looks like it has Captain America's shield. The chest seems to have the circle plate glowing thing that Thor has going on. And then when you step back and look at the whole suit put together, there's some major giant man vibes. Coming in at number 6, we have regeneration powers. Now, most heroes have some sort of advanced ability of regeneration. That's just a generic power that a lot of heroes can use, but with Miles, it's much more powerful. There have been several occasions where Miles has been getting pummeled by some sort of big baddie and bounces back faster than a dodgeball hitting that quiet kid in gym class. There was one occasion where Miles was being tortured by none other than Dr. Doom, and even after a long, exhausting saw-like treatment, Miles had enough gas in the tank to keep on punching and break free. When compared to Peter Parker, Miles can take a beating and come back punching way faster. Coming in at number 5, we have the black and gold Iron Spider suit. This suit is a masterpiece. The black and gold go together so well. You can't not look like a boss while wearing something like that. Also, it has the extendable metal arms that every other Iron Spider suit has. Now, I'm well aware that this suit is only worn by Miles for a little bit. I know that it's mostly worn by Aaron Davis, who is the Prowler and also Miles's uncle. Man, I think you have to have family issues if you want to become a hero. It's like the trauma makes you better at saving people or something. Coming in at number 4, we have Spider Tech. As time goes on, so do the cool possibilities for suits. This suit was featured on the cover of Miles Morales 13. At first glance, it might just seem like a standard suit, but when you get a closer look, you will see that there's much more going on. There's a digital logo displayed on the front of the suit that has an amazing effect. It kind of looks like this static thing going on, and the same effect is layered over the eyes. Also, the glowing red on the gloves and shoes just makes the whole thing pop. I love how this whole thing has a very near future look. I don't know how practical it would be to have glowing parts on your suit while you're fighting crime, but hey, I still dig it. Coming in at number 3, we have Miles Cross Carnage. Whenever a symbiote gets onto someone, it makes them 10 times cooler, and when this creepy liquid alien managed to hook its claws into Miles, we got a variant look that is insanely cool. The black and red cross with the flowing being of the symbiote really makes the suit look way cooler than a lot of the other versions of Carnage. Maybe not cooler than the Green Goblin, but that's that's a whole other beast. My favorite thing about this look is the spiral on the face. The sort of hypnotic spin that is entrenched in the face really gives off an image of insanity, and when Carnage is pulling the strings, you know things are going to get a little crazy.
Number 2. The Miles from Earth 616 is a jerk, and that's putting it mildly. While the Miles we all know is a really nice guy, it turns out he isn't quite so nice in the main Marvel reality. This Miles followed more in the footsteps of his father and uncle and was involved with the Rigoletto crime family. He spent 3 years at Rikers Island to cover for his cousin, where he became friends with none other than Wilson Fisk, aka Kingpin. He ended up leaving the criminal life behind him because he fell in love with Barbara Sanchez, and after she dies, Fisk tells Miles about the alternate universes, and Miles actually ends up going to Earth 1610, thus effectively swapping places with the Miles Morales we all know and love. He found his gal, they clicked, and the rest is history. So sweet.
Coming in at number 1 is Into the Spiderverse with the Jordans. Oh yeah. Into the Spiderverse was a smash hit and introduced Miles Morales to a mainstream audience. I know many comic fans have been singing his praise from the mountaintops for years, but I feel like this movie was so incredible that mom and dad who don't read comics now know who this new web slinger is. And I have to say that this movie brings in one of the best suits that we have ever seen Miles in. Now the suit doesn't give him any special powers unless you count looks that could kill. But in this movie we have Miles wearing a black and red suit with the red logo sprayed on the front of the suit. Having the spray painted logo gives Miles such a unique look and showcases his personality coming through the costume. On top of this, we have him rocking a dope hoodie, jeans, and the Jordans. You gotta give it to Miles for having a pair of Jordans that match his suit perfectly. I do wonder if it makes it harder for his feet to stick to surfaces, but especially after the Michael Jordan documentary, The Last Dance, this has gotta be one of the best superhero suits ever. Alright nerds, that is all we have for you here today, and before I let you go, I'm going to give you guys my picks for my favorite Spider-Man video games. My first pick has to be Spider-Man 2 for the PS2. If you're too young for this, you won't remember how amazing this game was. Literally, it blew everyone's mind because it was the first time you could be Spider-Man in an open world sandbox game and go anywhere you wanted. I even remember the commercials. It was like, you can go from the rooftop to the blacktop. Nowadays, this is something that's very standard in games, but back then it blew everyone's mind.
Hey, you're actually keeping up. Nice.
Coming in next is Ultimate Spider-Man. This game had a wide array of characters with some crossovers from other comic books. It's a game that felt extremely comic booky with all the villains and expanded universe things that were taking place, which really made you feel like you were playing inside a comic book. And my last pick is, of course, Marvel Spider-Man for PS4. This game is hands down the best Spider-Man game ever made. The open world is amazing, there is a ton of fan service in the game, and the game was made by Insomniac, who has stood the test of time as one of the best developers in the industry.
Number 10. His character was inspired by Barack Obama. This is one fact that comes up everywhere, but I figure not everyone spends their time googling various superheroes, so maybe this will be news to some of you. When Obama was elected president, writers at Marvel felt they should have their own victory of multiculturalism. So as a black man entered the most powerful position in the world, another became one of the best superheroes in the world. Thanks, Obama! No, really, thank you. Miles is awesome. Number 9. He's from an alternate dimension. Miles fans will certainly be aware of this, but if you haven't been keeping up with the comics, you may not have picked up on it. Miles didn't start on Earth 616, but rather Earth 1610, the Ultimate Universe. The Spider-Man of his world had seemingly died against Norman Osborn, and Miles, who had received similar powers in a similar way, took on the mantle. He only ended up on Earth 616 after the destruction of Battle World, when he woke up with himself and his family transported to the main continuity, thanks to Molecule Man, and I, for one, couldn't be happier. Number 8. He was reluctant to become Spider-Man. Even though he did eventually take on the mantle, that doesn't mean he was particularly happy about it. When he first got his powers, Miles didn't like it. He just wanted to be normal and decided to leave the heroics to Peter Parker, whom he saw as the real Spider-Man. However, when Peter died, Miles decided he couldn't sit idly by while the world went to crap, so he bit the bullet and started his heroic career. Way to take one for the team. Number 7. His uncle is one of his villains. It seems that Spider-Man are destined to have their uncles greatly affect their heroics. For Peter, his uncle taught him that his powers brought with them great responsibility. But Miles' uncle had a more direct hand. First, it was the spider he stole from Oscorp that gave Miles his powers in the first place, but later, good old Uncle Aaron, aka the tech-wielding criminal The Prowler, learned about his nephew's abilities and tried to blackmail Miles into committing crime for him. Thankfully, Miles has powers pretty well suited for taking out tech-dependent baddies, and he defeated his uncle. Zap. Number 6. He's half Puerto Rican. Here's something that I know a lot of people who haven't read the comics don't know about, because I've seen a bunch bunch of surprised reactions to it on the internet, even though his name is kind of a hint. But yeah, Miles is actually half black and half Puerto Rican, with an African American father and a Puerto Rican mother. This is the second time a Spider-Man has been part Hispanic after Miguel O'Hara of Spider-Man 2099, who was half Mexican. Having such a popular and mainstream character with a background like this was really exciting for a bunch of nerds of color who are pretty damn underrepresented in comics. Number 5. New powers. Probably the coolest thing about Miles' Spider-Man is he has a bunch of powers that Peter doesn't have. This not only sets him apart from his predecessor, but allows the comics to explore all new avenues. On top of the powers Peter received, the spider bite gave Miles the ability to camouflage with his surroundings, making him effectively invisible. It also gave him BIO-ELECTROKINESIS, which allows him to use electrical currents in his body to zap others. This allows him to use his signature attack, the Venom Blast, to electrocute enemies or take out electronics. So cool. Number 4. He's voiced by Donald Glover. That's right, even though we have yet to see Donald Glover play Spidey in a film, we have the next best thing. He voices Miles in the animated series Ultimate Spider-Man, and he is just perfect for the role. I always get Donald and Danny Glover mixed up, so when I first heard about this, I was picturing Spidey going, "Riggs, I'm too old for this shit." Number 3. He isn't as smart as Peter. A huge part of Peter Parker's character was his incredible genius. His scientific prowess was useful not only in his heroics, allowing him to create gadgets like his web shooters, but also in real life when he was the head of Parker Industries. Miles, on the other hand, is just a regular guy, even if he is smarter than the average Joe. Most of his power comes either from his spider abilities or Peter's old tech. Miles is a better dancer though. That's not a race thing, that's a Peter friggin' sucks at dancing thing.
Coming in at number 2, we have Weird World Miles Morales. Yes, this suit has to be one of the coolest in the whole Marvel universe. And I'm not even just talking about Spider-Man suits, this is one of the coolest of any superhero. I mean, let's just take a look for a moment. First of all, he has a cape, and I know Edna Mode preaches no capes because they're not practical and they're possibly very dangerous, but my god is this cool. It's all black with red webbing running through it, and then it comes with a hood. He looks like Batman crossed with Assassin's Creed. Then we top this off with the fact that this version of Spider-Man is whipping around daggers at everyone. Are you serious? A Spider-Man who uses throwing knives has to be one of the most lethal things on the planet.
Number 1. He might be immortal. Obligatory Misfits reference?
I'm immortal.
It was revealed in the Ultimates comics that the Oz formula seems to make users immortal. This is what allowed both Norman and Peter to survive their battle, since Norman had treated himself and Peter had been bitten by an Oz spider. But you know who else was bitten by a special spider? Motherflippin' Miles! Now it should be noted that the immortality thing could be a lie, so I wouldn't go testing it out, but it does seem pretty interesting. And to reiterate, this is for the Ultimate versions of these characters.